The distress beacon hit 1% and kept falling like a slow heartbeat slipping toward silence. Commander Sierra Vell watched the red LED stutter on the Glasswing's bridge and felt the cold work its way into the joints of her hands. The Avori did not do well with cold. They were a species of laboratories and libraries, warm rooms, warm light, warm questions. Not this. 3 days earlier, the Avori research corvette Glasswing had slid between nameless stars to study a ring-shaped artifact asleep around a brown dwarf. It looked like a crown forgotten at the bottom of an ocean, silent, dust-blind, older than the Avori stories about older than stories. Sierra authorized a close pass with active scans. That was the last thing that had worked on the Glasswing the way the manual promised it should. The ring woke, a single warning lance stitched across their drives, not enough to kill, just enough to hush. Main power collapsed into emergency. Hyperfold coil, cracked. Sublight thrusters, intermittent. Heat sinks, sullen. The artifact darkened again, as if embarrassed by its own reflex. "Beacon at 09," said Talon, her communications officer. His crest feathers had gone from lake blue to storm gray. "Projected exhaustion in 5 hours. "Say it," murmured Doctor. Male eerie from medical, voice fogged with the fatigue of rationed oxygen. "Say we're too far for anyone to hear. It will be easier when we finally stop hoping." Sierra stared at the perfect night beyond the view frame. People like Mail believed in probabilities the way the devout believe in hymns. She respected that. She also knew how civilizations starved when every choice had to repay itself before sundown. "We keep broadcasting," she said, "until the diode dies or we do." They recorded messages to families and to the Confederacy, to universities that had sponsored their expeditions, to old friends. They even wrote a note to the ring itself, Talon's idea, apologizing for waking it so rudely. When the ship grew colder, the crew gathered on the bridge in jackets and emergency blankets, sharing the narrow heat of breathing bodies. Sierra kept count, 12 lives, 12 little suns. "Beacon at 06. Talon's voice turned thin. "Carrier stable. Food 8 days," Mail said. "Air 6 if we remain still." "Motion helps no one," Sierra replied. "Sit, think, conserve." They tried every repair that didn't require parts they didn't have. Chief Tekpava unwound panels like knots and cursed like a poet. Nothing yielded. Entropy rarely bargains when you're desperate. The beacon touched 0, 3 and then 0, 2. Sierra felt the bridge contract around a choice: prepare for a slow, careful, rational death or continue pretending the universe sometimes blinks first. "Commander," Talon whispered, "I have something. It's crude, not quantum-paired. Radio. Radio, a fossil of a word. Artificial," Sierra asked. "Absolutely artificial." He twisted dials no modern ship carried except in museum drawers, coaxing coherence out of old noise. A voice cracked through, harsh, clipped syllables that bounced and stung, a language the translator gulped and coughed at, then slowly, stubbornly learned to pronounce. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Meyer Ortiz of the United Earth Ship Providence. We received your distress signal. What is your status? Do you require assistance?" No one spoke. It felt like hearing a story your grandparents swore wasn't true and then watching it step through your airlock. Talon's crest flared silver. "They said assistance, the words unambiguous." Sierra made herself breathe. Unknown species, unknown intent, a warship by the sound of it. She thought of all the game theory lectures that insisted kindness was a currency, never a gift. Then she thought of the 12 little suns on her bridge. "Channel open," she said. "Providence. This is Commander Sierra Vell of the Avori research vessel Glasswing. Our hyperfold coil is destroyed. Life support is diminishing. We are scientists. We are not armed." Silence stretched, taut as surgical thread. Then, "Glasswing received. We are altering course. ETA 41 minutes. We will render aid. Prepare to receive a boarding team for medical and engineering support." A warship and a boarding team. Sierra felt fear and relief collide, then settle into something like awe. "Acknowledged, Providence," she said. "We will ready an airlock and our gratitude." Outside, a new star appeared and grew, not blazing, but absorbing light like geometry invented by wolves. The ship that arrived was not elegant, it was purposeful. Its skin bore scars honestly. Its name glowed across its hull in a script the translator turned into a simple declaration: Providence. The docking collar kissed metal. The airlock cycled. 6 figures stepped through in armor that looked like it could stop a philosophy. The lead unsealed her helmet. Human, compact, brown-eyed, hair braided tight as a code. "Commander Sierra Vell," the human asked. "Yes. I'm Captain Meyer Ortiz. We answer distress calls. That's our first order, last order, and the one we sleep to. We're here to help." It was not a negotiation. It was the weather. Sierra's people who loved probabilities had not modeled this one. And yet something in the avory part of her, the patient part, the part that had waited whole winters for single flowers to bloom in lab trays, felt the universe click into a pattern that made a new kind of sense. Help first, questions later. Maybe it wasn't childish. Maybe it was the oldest technology of all. Behind Ortiz, a medic, LT, Annika Rao raised a hand with polite urgency. "With permission, doctor," she said to Mail, already scanning blue blood with a device that hummed a kind song. A stout engineer with grease on his knuckles, Chief Horace Dunn, grinned at Pava like they'd been trading parts for years. "Show me where it hurts," he said. Sierra stepped back, opening her ship to strangers because the alternative was closing it on friends she hadn't known 5 minutes earlier could exist. "Captain Ortiz," she said, steady now. "You ask nothing." Ortiz looked genuinely puzzled. "You called for help, and that is reason enough." Ortiz's mouth tipped toward a smile that wasn't victory and wasn't pity. "Where I'm from, you hear a voice in the dark, you bring a light. We can argue the invoice after we're all alive to be petty." On the bulkhead, the beacon ticked down to 0, 1. Then Dunn shouted from an access trunk, a man pleased to be playing with a new puzzle. "Found your air loop choke point. 10 minutes and you'll breathe like a choir." "Make it 9, Ortiz said. "I owe someone a promise." Glasswing. "Welcome to the part of the universe where we don't leave people behind." Sierra closed her eyes and let the sentence settle. For the first time since the ring woke, she believed she might live to be older and kinder than she already was. The beacon flickered, then steadied as new power bled into old veins. Somewhere in the deep dark, the artifact ring kept its secrets. For now, that was acceptable. They had found something else to study, a species whose first technology was a decision. Warmth came back to the glasswing not as a switch, but as a dawn. Heat sighed through vents. Frost beads on conduit flanges turned to water and then to nothing. Mail's cheeks lost their oxygen-starved hue. Dunn worked shoulder to shoulder with Pava, naming parts and functions as if teaching was an instinct, not an assignment. "This brace," Dunn said, tapping a junction, "you built it like a violin, beautiful, delicate. I love it. Also, it will crack under the kind of thermal shiver you got when that ring swatted you. We're gonna weld in a simple cross member, ugly, strong. When ugly keeps you alive, you will begin to find it handsome." Pava blinked, then barked a laugh. "I teach first years that exact sentence, different nouns." She glanced at Sierra. "He is a mechanic and a philosopher. We breed them like that," Ortiz said from the doorway, a hint of amusement in her voice. She had unarmored to a duty jacket, black fabric worn smooth at the elbows, as if chores were not beneath a captain. "How is your head, doctor?" "Less fog, more questions," Mail said, fingers dancing over a portable analyzer Rao had handed off with the casual trust of colleagues who knew tools were extensions of hands, not emblems of ownership. "Our hemoglobin binds oxygen differently. Your medjol is surprisingly adaptable." Rao shrugged. "We fight fires on ships. You learn to treat whoever is choking." "Why?" Mail asked, not accusatory, genuinely curious. "Our models say you should hoard advantage in the first encounter with the unknown." Ortiz leaned against a bulkhead, crossing her arms like a harbor crane at rest. "We used to build our models like that," she said, voice even. "We hurt each other with them. We learned. Where I come from, kids still read about little boats crossing a rough channel to pull strangers off a burning shore." About a tin can in space with 3 people and a busted tank and a planet full of engineers who said failure is not an option and made it true. We made habits out of those stories. Habits become doctrine. Doctrine becomes culture. Culture changes math. Mail considered this with the seriousness of a scientist hearing a result that appends a long-settled chart. So it is not naivety, it is strategy built from values. It's also faster, done called from the crawl space. Commit to rescue, you stop counting the wrong beans. Talon pinged Sierra quietly, picking up their internal traffic. They've signaled for linguists and xenoanthropologists, not to interrogate but to avoid offense. Sierra looked at Ortiz. You call for diplomats when you could call for more guns? Ortiz's expression softened. Guns are easy, respect is hard. We try to be excellent at the hard thing. Sierra walked the length of her own bridge, seeing it as a stranger might. Scratches from hurried hands, a loose thread on the chair back from the night she slept there during finals at command school. A stain where Pava's tea had leapt in 0G. Home, bruised, she turned back. The ring, she said. You came here because of it. We were on patrol, Ortiz said. We saw your signal. Your signal mattered more than our schedule. We will take a look at the ring when you're safe enough to be curious again. Mail, who had made a profession out of curiosity, made a face that mixed longing and discipline. A moment ago I wanted to ask if you would share your radiation-hardened gel formula. Now I want to ask if you will teach my students how you turn stories into rules. Both feel like medicine. Both are shareable, Ortiz said. Our default license on knowledge is make the world better with it. A default license, Mail repeated, smiling like someone tasting a new spice. Our default license is we will convene a panel. We have panels. We also have a thing we say back home. First, do the helpful thing. Panels are for the second thing. Sierra studied the human captain. The words were plain, almost blunt, but no part of them felt performative. There was even a humility in the way Ortiz kept checking the corners, airflow here, heat plume there, as if command meant attention more than authority. It reminded Sierra of an Avori ocean tradition. The lifeguard watches when everyone else is looking at the waves. Alarms pricked the air, gentle, undecorated. Talon's hands flew, his crest flattened. Long-range contacts, he said. Multiple high-speed configurations unfamiliar, vectoring tight. Dunn slid from the crawl space in one practiced roll, all jokes boxed and shelved. Rao's med case closed with a click that sounded absurdly like a door locking at night. Ortiz tapped her wristband. Providence, Ortiz, confirm bogeys. A voice replied, filtered and taut. 5. Drive signatures match Reaver biovessels. Estimate contact in 36 minutes. Mail's pupils dilated. Even the Avori had tales about Reavers, scavengers, slavers, harvesters of anything that couldn't run faster than their appetite. Sierra felt the temperature of the room drop again, this time understandably. Ortiz's gaze flicked to Sierra, not asking permission, taking measure. We'll intercept, she said, already moving. Glasswing, power down anything you don't need. Talon, you'll keep our channel open. Dr. Rao, leave your scanner with Mail. Chief, break out the ugly welds you warned me about. We'll buy you time with them. Captain, Sierra said, our ship cannot fight. It can barely move. I know, Ortiz said. That is why we will stand in front of it. Sierra heard herself say, as if from a distance, you cannot win 5-1. Ortiz stopped, as if that were a problem for later. We can win long enough, she said. Sometimes that's the only unit that matters. She sealed her helmet. The visor ghosted her face with a reflection of the bridge lights, turning a human into a fable. We don't abandon people who asked us for help. Not today, not this ship. The human team withdrew with the quick, controlled urgency of firefighters who had rehearsed in hotter rooms. The docking collar retracted. The Providence slid between the glasswing and the approaching shapes like a palm interposed between fist and fragile. Sierra found she was shaking and could not tell whether from fear or from a new, fierce pride that did not belong to her alone. All hands, she said on ship-wide. Strap in. We will be witnesses worthy of what we have seen. Outside, the predators grew. Inside, across two species, a principle hardened into a plan: help first. Later would have to wait. The Providence did not fight like a museum piece. It fought like a street medic, close, fast, improvising with whatever the room would give. Its engines knifed and juked. Its guns wrote hard lines. Its countermeasures popped like startled birds. The 5 Reaver biovessels came on like hunger-given geometry, their hulls more grown than built, exhaling weaponry that bent light and shrieked in registers that made the Glasswing's bones hum. Providence to Glasswing. Ortiz's voice cut through the storm, calm as a good teacher on a bad day. We're engaging. If we go quiet, that is us working, not us gone. Do not move forward into the melee. They are coordinating, Talon whispered. They always do. Pack logic. 1 herds, 1 bites. 3 watch the exits. The Providence seemed to know that dance and refused to let the Reavers lead. She dove toward the herder and then snapped to strike the watcher, making 2 of the predators trip their own arcs. Dunn whooped once on an open channel, a human sound that had no translation file except joy at something done well under the absolute worst circumstances. The Reavers adapted. Predators learn in seconds what committees take years to draft. 2 lances of dark energy clawed the Providence. The ship shuddered and bled light. Sierra clenched the rail so hard her fingers ached. "Captain Ortiz," she said, "your hull." "Seen it," Ortiz replied. Even through encryption, Sierra heard labored breath. "We're good. Done. I need that port vector corrected, or I'm going to drift into exactly the teeth I have been avoiding all my very long and beautiful life." "On it, Cap," Dunn said, voice tight, and then, "Correction applied. Don't ask what I just used to do it." "I never ask," Ortiz said, and the Providence knifed free. They could not keep it. Even courage has a burn rate. A Reaver spine spike punctured a flank. Hull plating tore. Air fled the Providence in gleaming ribbons that caught starlight like confetti, a terrible beauty. 2 more strikes followed, ugly, efficient. The warship's fire stuttered, steadied, thinned. "Cap," came a new human voice, lower, rougher, coughing through the link. "We're venting in sections B through F. We can't hold a straight line and a pulse pattern." "Then we will hold the line," Ortiz said. "And pulse pattern is for people who still think the room is fair." She took the Providence right into the lung of the largest Reaver and punched a storm into it. For a gleaming second, Sierra felt the insane vertigo of wanting to cheer for a plan no sane book would print. The price came due. A Reaver latched and bit. The Providence shook like a chime in an earthquake. "Prepare pods," Ortiz said. "No panic, just the new job. We make sure our dead are alive." "We can go to them," Sierra said, voice breaking through protocol and self-preservation both. "We can recover survivors." "Negative," Ortiz said, and then softly, "Not yet." "Cap," Dunn said, "I can detonate the coil residuals in a shaped burst. We'll cut 2 of them off at the knee and buy the others a headache." "That is a ship killer," Rao said, clear, professional. "We'll have seconds to abandon." "Seconds are a unit," Ortiz said. "Do it." The Providence flared, no ordinary explosion, but a taught lesson in how to teach pain where to go. 2 Reavers twisted into wounded night, the others reeled. "Go," Ortiz said. "Pods away. Remember your triage, your buddy ropes, your stubbornness. Glasswing, it's your turn to do the rude thing." "We're already moving," Sierra said. She had not ordered it. Pava had already done the math and burned what remained of their sublight, a scientist praying with engines. "Mail, prep Bay 2 for intake. Talon, mark pods. Dunn, if you can hear me." "I hear you," Dunn said, and in the pause that followed, Sierra could hear a smile bleed through. "You Avori write pretty machines. Try not to cry when I scuff your paint with my boots." They pulled 3 pods, then 4, then 8. Rao came in on the second wave with a ruptured suit and a taped arm, laughing at something only grim professionals find funny. "Your doctor mail saved my stupid life with my own scanner," she reported, offended and grateful at once. "I'm making that illegal on Tuesdays." "Cap," Sierra asked. "Last pod," Ortiz said, "had a disagreement with physics, coming in hot, smoking like a lie." "Vector," Talon said, "interceptable but tight." A remaining Reaver had noticed the rescue. Predators hate it when you steal from them. It angled in, intent on exterminating both Mercy and witnesses. The Glasswing could not outrun it and could not duel it. She did a third thing. Sierra ordered gravity and life support dumped to engines for 90 seconds. The world went weightless and thin. Air hissed back into the places they had just reclaimed it from. Jackets floated, tools wandered. The glasswing leaped like a surprised horse. They hooked Ortiz's pod against the airlock with a kiss that was almost a punch. Rao and Mail hauled the captain through. Ortiz was white-lipped under the helmet, blood ribboning from a hairline cut, and still her first sentence was a joke for somebody else. "Doctor, your scanner has opinions about me. I'm filing a rebuttal." "Shut up," Mail said with the awe of a very polite person who had just discovered impoliteness could be medicinal. "Breathe, bleed less. Air, gravity, engines back to possible." Behind them the reaver came on, a shark scenting. "Where?" Sierra demanded, turning to Ortiz because instinct and intellect agreed on one thing. "You ask the person who looks like they've wrestled the sea." Ortiz pressed a palm to the bulkhead as if asking the ship to carry a secret more quickly. "The ring," she said. "Run for the artifact." "It crippled us," Sierra said. "It has rules," Ortiz replied. "Everything that old has rules. You triggered defense mode because you touched it uninvited. There's a decent chance it prefers to shoot murderers over medics. That's theology. That's engineering plus ethics, which is what theology was before somebody set it on fire. Go." Sierra went. Later, she would wonder if her bravery began there or if it had been there all along, sleeping behind an education that had taught her the world was safest when its surprises were slow. The palladium ring thickened in the viewframe until it was not a ring but a horizon. Its spokes caught the brown dwarf's light like old bone. Sierra remembered the moment the glasswing had woken it with an impatient scan and almost laughed at her own arrogance. On approach, she ordered no active ping. "We arrive as guests," she said. "Reaver closing," Talon reported. "Two others recovering." Ortiz, bandaged and stubbornly vertical, braced on the rail with her uninjured. "Talon, can you broadcast on the same primitive band you heard us on? Wide, simple, one sentence." "What sentence?" he asked. "The sentence our species wrote on our sea stations after too many storms, vessel in distress. Assistance requested, do not fire, add non-combatant aboard. That last bit is a truth the universe sometimes honors." "It will not understand our words," Mail said. "It might understand the shape of them," Ortiz replied. "Meaning has geometry." Talon sent the message into the dark, an old prayer in a new voice. The ring woke again. Lights bled across its surface. Antennas unfolded with the grace of someone stretching after a long sleep. Something vast turned its attention toward the glasswing and the predator behind her. "Please," Sierra said, unsure which god she was embarrassing. "Please read this correctly." A spear of light wrote itself from the ring's spine and cut across the reaver's path. Not a warning, a decision. Organic armor peeled. The predator twisted, screamed in a frequency that shook Mail's instruments into static, then died as if someone snuffed a candle with philosophy. The second reaver, late and now wise, tried to flee. Two more spears answered wisdom with finality. Silence washed back in. The ring dimmed to a patient glow, as if embarrassed by the noise it had made. Lights on the glasswing's board flipped from red to amber to the uncertain green of damaged things patched by people who refused to let them stay broken. Talon's console pinged. "Incoming signal," he said, voice a child's in a grown room. "Old protocols, machine voice, translation ongoing." He swallowed, crest trembling. "Message reads, traveler, you signaled distress, threat eliminated, you require assistance." Sierra looked at Ortiz. The human captain's eyes were wet, not fear, not pain, something else. Recognition, maybe, the joy of meeting a friend across an improbable bridge. "Answer," Ortiz said softly. "Say yes." Sierra did. "Palladium ring. This is Commander Sierra Vell of the Avori vessel Glasswing. We accept whatever repairs and supplies you can safely grant." "Proceed to Dock 7. The ring replied, as if it had been saving the parking space for an old neighbor prone to mishaps. "Purpose of this facility to keep the road kind." "Keep the road kind," Mail repeated, the scientist who had just watched a ghost confirm a hypothesis no peer would have allowed in print. We woke a guard, not a jailer. Dunn coughed a laugh and winced at the pain it caused him, which caused Rao to hit him on the shoulder with a practiced sibling affection that translated perfectly. "Roads kinder with ugly welds," he said. "Somebody write that down and build a religion we can repair with a socket wrench." Tugs unfolded from the ring like patient hands. The Glasswing and the Providence's pods latched and drifted toward a dock whose doors opened with a sigh like a teacher's when a class finally asks the right question. Inside, repair drones waited with spools of wire and memory. Sierra keyed shipwide. "All hands prepare for interface and assistance. Breathe, drink water, allow the human medic to boss you, she has earned it." Rao scowled affectionately. "I was born to boss." Ortiz leaned close enough that Sierra could see the pores on her skin, the human reality beneath the legend she had just written. "Listen," Ortiz said. "This is where the next hard thing begins. Rescue is Act 1. The work is the sequel, how we tell this story so it turns into policy instead of nostalgia. We will say," Sierra answered, "that when we called, you answered without hesitation, that you stood in the door and said the room would not eat us today, that you gambled and lost a ship and counted it as the price of keeping a promise." "I don't want to make us the only heroes," Ortiz said, a little fierce. "Your ship ran into hell to pull our people out. You emptied your lungs for 30 seconds to make it happen. We make this about habit, not about species." Male, hovering with a med patch like a priest with a sacrament, nodded. "Habits that cross cultures become laws. Laws engrave memory into metal. That is how civilizations keep their better days." The docking clamps settled. Gravity adjusted with a sigh. The ring spoke again, more quietly, as if learning to modulate, as if remembering it had once had a bedside manner. "Travelers, step gently. There are stories here." "Later," Ortiz said, smiling with half her mouth. "First, triage." They filed into the ring and found corridors built for no one they had ever met, marked by symbols that nevertheless felt like wayfinding any child could read. Food, water, tools, sleep. A mural chiseled into an archway showed ships stopping for one another, from different eras, different shapes, the same angle of hand extended. Sierra stood beneath it and knew two things at once: that the ancestors who had made the ring were gone and that they were not done speaking. "Captain," Talon said, voice small in the sacred hall, "I am receiving signals from farther out. Multiple vessels, 2 with human signatures, 3 Avori, they are burning hard." "Cavalry," Dunn murmured. "Family," Male corrected. Ortiz took a long breath, the kind people take when they have been wearing a helmet too long in a place that has not deserved it. "Then we have a gift to give them," she said. "A joint report that doesn't posture, a repair plan we'll publish, a doctrine proposal we can both defend. We write it clean. We write it practical. We write it like we expect critics. We write it for the kid on a backwater barge who hears a cry and decides whether to answer." Sierra smiled, sudden and true. "You are very Avori," she said. "Don't tell my mother," Ortiz replied, and let Rao finally push her onto a gurney with the exasperation of a friend who knows when a hero has earned the right to sit down. Above them, the ring hummed a key no species claimed but both recognized. Outside, the dark kept its distance, uninterested, for the moment in brave little suns. Inside, 2 crews set to work on the easiest hard thing in the universe, making survival into a system. The ring gave them water, light, and time, 3 luxuries that turned panic into policy. Ortiz slept at last, stubbornly, after Rao threatened to sedate her with something that tastes like regret. Sierra used the quiet to walk the palladiums in her halls. Every corridor curved toward an ethic, icons for shelter, for tools, for wayfinding, etched into stone like a language that wanted to be kindness more than it wanted to be clever. Reinforcements docked by degrees. The human ships Mercy and North Star arrived with a hush of burn and a chorus of relieved voices. Avori vessels Lumen Arc, Heliograph, and the freighter Tally settled into adjacent slips, bays opening like hands. Heliograph's captain, Old Avenkes, hugged Sierra without asking. "You look like a person who made new math," he said. "Tell me the proof later." They convened in a chamber the ring had labeled with an icon Sierra took to mean gather. No throne, no dais, just a circular table and a ceiling that softly echoed the sound of voices back to their owners, reminding them every statement returns to its speaker eventually. Commodore Aaron Vale of the United Earth Navy represented the human side with a posture like a beam, straight, load-bearing, unwilling to fail. The Avori had sent Director Hal Soar from the Academy, a scholar of jurisprudence whose hair had gone white reading other people's bad decisions. Ortiz was present, bandaged but upright. Dunn leaned against a wall because chairs are for people who aren't made of wrenches. Rao and Mail stood together like a paired theorem. "We write something now," Vale said without preface. "Doctrine, not a press release. A manual a scared crew can use at 3 in the morning." Director Soar folded his fingers. "Doctrine cannot be written in an afternoon. It can be started," Ortiz said. "And if we don't start it, the universe will keep doing what it does when nobody decides on purpose. Punish the decent for hesitating and reward the fast for being cruel." Soar's mouth tipped. Sierra knew that expression. She wore it when a student answered a question with something better than the question. "Very well," Soar said. "Propose." Sierra glanced around the table and felt the weight of all the damaged ships she had toured, all the letters home unfinished on Tally's comms. "We call it the Road-Kind Protocol," she said. "Named for the ring's purpose, 6 parts. 1. Immediate aid mandate. Upon receipt of a distress call, the default action is assistance. Not parley, not negotiation. Aid, you can be cautious, you cannot be indifferent. 2. Sentience blind triage. We treat bodies, not flags. The medic asks who is bleeding, not where they were born. 3. Proportional risk. Rescue commanders may accept risk but must do so with discipline, no martyrdom theater. We will teach how to be brave without being stupid. 4. No salvage during rescue. No one claims a bolt while the beacon still beats. After safety, we can argue about scrap like civilized idiots. 5. Transparency ledger, not a bill, a record who helped how, what worked, what failed. Open by default, redacted only for genuine safety. 6. Common distress grammar. A set of signals any culture and any old machine can recognize. Primitives, bands, simple shapes, readable values. Meaning has geometry, we will use it. Dunn raised a hand. Add ugly is allowed. If an ugly fix gets the air clean, it is doctrine. Engineers get permission to offend aesthetics. Rao added, and medical reciprocity. I can treat your blood, you can treat mine. We publish the differences and we practice together before the fire, not during it. Soar scribbled, then surprised Sierra by nodding slowly, as if rearranging his furniture to make room for new chairs. "This is not law yet," he said, "but it is a usable habit. Habits become norms, norms become law." Vale tapped the table. "There's a counter-argument you need to answer in paragraph 1. Traps, pirates, false beacons. The universe has teeth. Then we write guardrails," Ortiz said. "We teach crews to approach with shields hot and hearts open. We define a checklist, verify signal persistence across bands, watch for cross-traffic on predator channels. Bring a buddy ship if possible. But the checklist ends with if a child is drowning and you can swim, go. We refuse to let bad actors own our reflexes." Sierra looked at the mural above the door, ships stopping for each other across centuries, and felt the old dread give way to a clean strain of courage. "The ring chose us when we asked," she said. "Let's choose everyone else in return." They worked until their voices grew hoarse and their pens ran out of ink. Dunn drafted sections on field expedients that won't kill you later. Rao and Mail composed cross-species care, the first 5 minutes. Talon and Northstar's linguist built a distress grammar so primitive and redundant a smart rock could parse it. Vale and Soar argued like sculptors, chipping at words until they held weight. By false dusk, whatever clock the ring used to imitate sunsets, Sierra read the header aloud, "The Road-Kind Protocol, a practical doctrine for answering calls." No signatures yet, just names at the bottom under "drafted in good faith by people who have bled for this." "Good," Ortiz said softly. "Now we test it." "How?" Soar asked, The ring answered with a chime that wasn't alarm so much as attention. Talon's console lit. "Traffic on the new grammar," he said, eyes wide. "A convoy in the haze lane, 27 vessels, one transport is venting, two unknowns shadowing. It's using the shapes we wrote an hour ago." "Universe moves faster than committees," Dunn muttered, already shouldering his kit. He looked to Sierra. "Boss." She didn't check with bigger uniforms. She checked the room. Everyone was already moving. "We built a door," Sierra said. "We walk through it." Vale grinned, the brittle kind soldiers wear when they change the world on a schedule. "Mercy Northstar," she called. "Launch and hold the lane. Avori, bring Lumen Arc for recovery, heliograph for eyes. Protocol in effect. Help first. Learn fast." "Learn fast," Sor repeated, sounding younger than his hair. What a law that would make. The ring opened its outer gate, and a corridor of light breathed into the dark. It looked like a promise. It sounded like a plan. The haze lane was a smear of diluted star wind, a corridor miners used when they didn't want to be seen by taxes or by trouble. Today it held both. The convoy rode a ragged line, hulls patched with whatever their owners had stolen from time. In their wake drifted a transport with a wounded belly and a stubborn beacon repeating the new grammar like a child practicing a first word. Two lean ships shadowed the convoy. Their hulls were anonymous, their drives too quiet, their vector the kind of casual that gets you killed. Raiders, not reavers, nothing so operatic. The ordinary evil that takes advantage of someone else's bad day. "Road kind protocol, step 1, Vale said on the open channel as Mercy and Northstar slid into the lane. "Announce assistance. Demand the raiders disengage. Approach with shields forward, weapons tight-leashed." "Avori stating presence," heliograph added. "We are eyes, not teeth." Sierra rode aboard Lumen Arc, a rescue platform with arms like cranes and a soul like a choir. Ortiz, against medical advice, insisted on the bridge beside her, leaning into every turn as if she could move a ship with clean intent. "Convoy, this is Mercy under Commodore Vale," came the human hail. "We read your distress. We are here to assist. Unknown shadowers, break off. You are under observation and will be recorded in the ledger." The raiders did not break. Of course they didn't. Predators stay until someone writes a different ending. One peeled away toward the wounded transport, hoping to cut the road between rescuers and the bleeding ship. "Step 2, Vale said. Block." Northstar slid like a door into the path. Lumen Arc moved in behind, opening her recovery bay. Heliograph's drones blossomed, dropping reflectors that painted the lane with simple shapes from the distress grammar. A living sign that said this is a rescue, not a battlefield. "Does this help?" Sierra asked. Ortiz nodded. "It tells bystanders which story they are in. Stories keep frightened hands from doing stupid things." The raider fired a dirty shot at Lumen Arc's tug line. Dunn's voice came sharp from Mercy's channel. "Ugly fix approved," he said, and slammed an emergency brace into place with a carbon charge. The line held. The raider tried again. Northstar flashed a warning burst that sandpapered the raider's shields but didn't break teeth. Vale was keeping to the protocol's restraint clause like a difficult pose. Then the second raider pulled its real trick. A duplicate distress call, identical grammar, duplicated carrier. A false beacon designed to split the rescuers and drag them blind into a cul-de-sac where the unknowns waited with wide nets. Talon caught it. "Geometry is wrong," he said in Sierra's ear. "See the spacing between the primitive tones? It's close, but not human close." "Meaning has geometry," Sierra murmured, and felt all the hours writing the grammar pay interest. "Call it out, Talon. Mark the real one." He overlaid the lane in pale blue and deep green, tracing rhythms no pirate would think to counterfeit. Tiny jitter constraints done, and the linguist had baked in to make lying expensive. Mercy and Northstar split correctly. Mercy holding the true rescue, Northstar intercepting the mimic with heliograph's drones, painting its wake as false in every color friendly machines would heed. The raiders suddenly found the room not so hospitable. Their shot at the transport glanced, their angle closed. Lumen Arc latched on and began to reel in the wounded. Mercy to unknowns, Vale said, a patient schoolteacher in a neighborhood with too many knives. This is your last polite invite to leave. A third shape rose out of the haze, a heavier ship, slaved to the raiders by greed and bad luck. Sierra felt the corridor skew toward catastrophe. We can't outgun and rescue, she said. We can outstory, Ortiz answered. Bring the ring. Sierra stared. We are far from the Palladium. We don't need the ring's guns, Ortiz said. We need its attention model. Broadcast the convoy's distress grammar in a wider cone with a bolt-on clause we wrote this morning, Guardian-aware mode. Every old object with ears will wake up and choose which way to lean. They had argued about that clause, worried about ghosts and unintended consequences. They used it now because constraint without courage is just cowardice wearing a tie. Talon lit the cone. The lane echoed. Two decommissioned boys turned their heads. An asteroid miner's safety net drone powered up from idle. A centuries-old traffic pylon flickered. Do not interfere with rescue. And something else. The lane's own dusty defense lattice, forgotten by governments who forget the people they tax, blinked awake and painted the raiders with a lock that said these are the teeth that bite thieves. The heavy ship reconsidered first. Smart evil can tell when the room has changed. It flipped vector and fled. The two leaners tried to follow and found their drives jammed by the pylon's old interdiction beams. Mercy walked them off with the minimum fire necessary, a shepherd's dog nipping hawks, not a wolf taking throats. Lumen Arc pulled the transport into her bay. Mail and Rao moved through bodies the way rain moves through heat, efficient and kind. Blue blood stable, Rao reported, and Sierra heard the relief on both frequencies she now recognized as human and Avori. Ledger it, Vale said. Publish the checklist entry, beware false grammar, confirm with micro-jitter. Done, write the field note. Field note, Dunn said, breathing hard. When ugly keeps your line, keep the ugly. Also, do not try to outclever a corridor that can wake rocks. It's rude. They broke the raiders' rigs apart and left them floating but alive, tagged for the slow professionals of law. The convoy reformed, its captain sending an audio-only thank you that sounded like a person who had paused crying long enough to say grace. On the ride back, Soar called from the ring, voice tight with the adrenaline of having almost believed. The protocol holds? It holds enough, Ortiz said. It will hold better after we write the part about pirates with printers. Sierra looked down the lane they had chastened and saw not triumph but a road that would need sweeping every day. We don't get to be done, she said. No, Ortiz agreed. We get to be responsible. They called it the Palladium Accords because names decide how seriously people carry paper. The signing took place under the mural of ships helping ships. There were no pen flourishes, no speeches longer than a good paragraph. Vale spoke first. This isn't a treaty that tells you what you own, it's a promise about what you owe. Soar followed. Law written in a quiet room is brittle. This one has scorch marks. Good. Pushback came like weather. A consortium of salvage lords sniffed profit loss. A security block worried the protocol would become camouflage for ambushes. A few loud voices called it naive. The galaxy eats optimists, one pundit said on a channel that pays by the outrage. Sierra, who had been polite all her life and good at it, learned to be a different kind of good. She testified before an Avori committee with the ring's icon for gather pinned to her collar. We are not making generosity mandatory, she said. We are making competence compassionate. If you fear ambushes, the protocol gives you checklists. If you fear freeloaders, the ledger remembers who helps. If you fear weakness, I invite you to read the names of the people who stood between hunger and strangers and tell me bravery is soft. Ortiz took the human questions with the steadiness of a lighthouse. We have always had a duty to render aid at sea, she said to a senator with a talent for drama. Space is merely a taller ocean. We're writing down what good captains already do so bad captains feel the shame of failing to do it. Rao and Mail conducted joint clinics. They published the first 5 minutes in 10 languages with diagrams so clear a child could treat shock without hurting themselves. Dunn and Pava taught ugly that lasts, filling a hangar with half-repaired rigs and a promise. You will leave with something you can build again when the world is on fire. Talon and the linguist turned the distress grammar into hardware, cheap boys with long-lived batteries, preloaded with the shapes the ring respected. We're not building a wall, Talon said at the launch. We're planting streetlights. The first Help First corridor lit up between the Palladium and a sister relic the Mercies cartographers found strung around a dim red sun. You could watch it on public feeds, a dotted line of soft beacons, a map that looked less like an empire and more like a neighborhood. Convoys began to cluster along it. Pirates went looking for darker corners. The ledger filled with names. Then came the test uglier than raiders. A false flag operation broadcast a near-perfect distress shape from a barricaded freighter, then opened with concealed guns when rescue arrived. North Star took a hit that made its captain swear in a way that turned into a lesson. Vale grounded the protocol for a day and convened a war room. They added verification windows, micro-challenges in the grammar a living crew can answer that a recording cannot. They added proportional parry, permission to clear teeth when a rescue becomes a fight without letting the fight swallow the rescue. They updated the ledger with a red banner across that day's entry. We learned, so must you. Sword drafted language few jurists write without losing friends, grace with teeth. We prefer to be taken advantage of once, he told the assembly, than to refuse help 100 times, but we are not fools, and we will not let cruelty steal our reflex by making us ashamed of it. People brought flowers to the mural and duct tape to the workshops. Children drew the ring on the sides of freight crates. Someone started a tradition of leaving a spare pair of gloves in every dock box, any size, any species. You never knew whose hands would be cold next. On a quiet shift, Sierra and Ortiz walked the outer ring in mag boots, the brown dwarf staining the horizon copper. Does it feel fragile to you? Sierra asked. Like a soap film that could tear if a single loud voice shouts. It is fragile, Ortiz said. So are ships, so are promises, that's why we sheath them in practice. They stopped beneath a new plaque, still smelling faintly of oil. Keep the road kind, it read in Avory loops and human block print, and beneath, protocol is what love looks like to strangers. Sierra reached up and brushed flecks from the letters. We'll need more rings, she said. We'll need more people saying yes, Ortiz replied. Rings are metal, yes is culture. The brown dwarf flared without warning, a tantrum old stars throw when forgotten. The Palladium dimmed its inner lights and braced, old bones creaking, then holding. Out on the new corridor, 3 ships went quiet in the same heartbeat. A migrant barge carrying families in stasis, a tug hauling ore, and a school vessel whose students had been composing poetry about gravity before gravity composed itself on them. Triple distress, Talon said, eyes wide, voice very small. All on the road. Protocol, Vale said, already stepping. Split and sprint. Mercy take the barge. North Star the school, Lumen Arc with me on the tug. Sierra's body remembered how to be calm fast. Heliograph paint the corridor bright. Wake everything that hears our grammar. Done, bring your ugly bag. Row mail, set triage for families and frightened teachers. Ortiz tightened her harness and met Sierra's gaze. Leave the ring to the ring, she said. It has survived longer than our worries. Today is about the small ships. They dropped into the corridor like coins into a fountain you intend to make holy by how you spend it. The flare's aftershock had slapped systems sideways, the migrant barge's cylinders fogged as temperature climbed. Mercy matched Vector and dug her claws in. Rao, Vale said, walk me through waking children without scaring them. Rao's answers came like a calm ocean. Warm air first, gentle light, a human voice telling them where home is now. Then hands. North Star reached the school ship, whose name, Painted Kite, made Sierra smile even in a crisis. Her students had tied paper cranes to the ceiling with filaments, a galaxy of folded promises. North Star's crew flowed through the cabins, untying fear, retying confidence. A teacher in shock reached for a hand and found one. That's all it took. Sometimes doctrine is just a bridge between two palms. Lumen Arc took the tug. Its pilot, a miner with a tattoo that said TRY again in a script that Ren, Lumen's young comms tech, later sketched into her notebook for a day she'd need it. Dunn patched a coolant artery with a solution so crude it should have been illegal and therefore was perfect. "It will hold through the worst 5 minutes of your life," he promised, "and then we'll make it pretty." In the background, the ring did what old guardians do. It turned its face toward the storm and absorbed what would have broken softer things. Panels failed and rerouted, ducts screamed and quieted. Somewhere deep, a memory core flipped a register from 1 to 0 and let go of something no one living would ever know. Sierra thought of elders who donate their strength so the young can keep dancing. The corridor woke too. Boys blinked alive. The traffic pylon that had saved them in the haze sent a message. "You are not alone." A forgotten agricultural satellite altered its orbit to bounce comms around a blackout. A derelict cargo can, long since welded into a roadside shrine by bored crews, flashed a stutter Morse that meant "this way, safe harbor." It felt like 1,000 small decisions adding up to a civilization. They lifted the last child from the kite. They sealed the barge's cylinders and bled off the dangerous heat. They coaxed the tug's engine past the cough and into a purr. The flare faded, ashamed of itself, maybe, or merely tired. Back at the Palladium, the ring's docks thrummed like a heart after a run. People clapped strangers on the shoulder the way families do when they have been briefly, gloriously, a single organism. Soar arrived with a new page for the Accords, Solar Weather Addendum. Vale scrawled a note at the top. "Everything we didn't know last week, learn it, teach it, write it down." They held no ceremony, they ate, they slept. They repaired a mural seam that had cracked under the flare's shove. Later, when the quiet had stretched enough to hold words, Sierra and Ortiz stood at Dock 7 and watched the Mercy depart on patrol. "You realize," Sierra said, "this started because we were rude to an ancient machine." Ortiz smiled. "Sometimes the bruise teaches best. And what will we call this road when it reaches farther than we can visit in a lifetime?" Sierra asked. Ortiz considered. "We won't name it after us," she said. "We'll name it after what people do on it. They stop, they help, they keep going. Maybe it doesn't need a capital letter. Maybe it's just called the way." Sierra touched the plaque, "Keep the road kind," and felt the groove of each letter transfer oil to her fingertips. "There will be days we fail," she said. "Yes," Ortiz answered. "And because we wrote it down, someone else will read it on a better day and do better. That's the trick, make your good contagious." Out past the ring, the corridor glowed a gentle chain of markers, not a wall, not a border, a suggestion. A freighter eased along it. A family ship with paper cranes in the porthole followed. Somewhere far ahead, a boy Sierra had never seen would wake to the grammar Talon wrote, and the ugly brace Dunn approved, and the bedside manner Rao and Mail taught, and the sentence Ortiz carried like a torch. "We answer." Sierra imagined a century hence, a child in a schoolroom on some dry moon tracing the route of the corridor on a map while a teacher says, "This is the road kind people built. It is not perfect, and it is not finished, and that is exactly why it belongs to you." She turned to go because the road does not keep itself. Ortiz fell into step. Behind them, Dock 7's sign gleamed in both their languages. In a ledger somewhere, a clerk entered 3 rescues and 1 flare and a note. The protocol held. They did not ring bells. They did not raise flags. They returned to work, which is how vows survive. And when the next call came, because calls always come, they answered without hesitation, without question, without fail.